Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Carry On Touring Online UK-EU Summit, organised by the Carry On Touring campaign. I'm Andrew Trendle, the news editor of NME, and I will be chairing this summit today. So just to bring you all up to speed on why we're here, I'm sure you're all aware, that the creative industries contribute more than £111 billion to the UK economy, and has been hit hard not only by the pandemic, but the 1-2 punch of the mess that Brexit has let us in. So the failure to secure an exemption to the TCA and allow for freedom of movement for those on tour is going to have a catastrophic impact on both the UK and the EU's cultural economies, a very real and human impact as well. All touring art forms will be affected, and in particular, young and emerging artists. The larger artists are likely to have the systems in place and the manpower to deal with this everyone else is likely to suffer. So with a return to the negotiating table, many jobs and livelihoods will be, Without a return to the negotiating table, many jobs and livelihoods will be lost, as well as income for crew, haulage and production at a time when the sector is desperately in need of a lifeline. So the enemy has been running with this for quite a long time. We've been writing about it for a couple of years, warning about the dangerous impact that Brexit could have on the touring industry. I remember we wrote a piece back in November last year saying what the absolute worst case scenario would be. And that's exactly what we have. So ever since then, we've just been reporting on this since January about the very real and human impact of it, how it's going to affect music fans, how it's essentially wiped out an entire industry for production crew who lead from the UK, the likelihood that EU promoters will face difficulties in booking UK talent, the knock-on effect that UK talent to acquire a US visa needs to prove their international reputation, and that becomes a lot less easy to do without the proof that you've been touring Europe. So there's quite a lot of very interesting and very human angles to this story that still haven't been dealt with. Here we are, 5 months later, still very much in the dark. So hopefully we can tend to a lot of those questions today and figure out where we go from here. So we're here today to support Carry On Touring, the umbrella campaign, which for those of you who are already aware, for the people who rely on touring as a, just to make ends meet, essentially. So we'll be focusing on real people, real lives, and the real jobs affected. We have a fantastic range of speakers today from across the sector, the industry, and political parties too. So thank you for everyone for joining us. So the campaign has been growing more and more each day with fantastic support. I'm sure you saw the headlines back in January that it reached over 280,000 signatures, which is just phenomenal, really. So thank you very much for everyone who's been involved in that. This session will be recorded and shared online in due course. Please use the hashtag #CarryOnTouring and the tag #CarryOnTouring to debate this matter on Twitter as we go along. You can use the chat function at the side to share your opinions and ask questions and find out more information. What can you do to support the campaign today? You can, of course, continue to sign Tim's petition and share it with your friends. By all means, follow us on Twitter and retweet our material. Sign the letter to Lord Frost, links are available. Tweet your MP and ask if they're supporting this campaign. Spread the word that touring just isn't working, and touring as we know it isn't possible ever again. And sign up to our mailing list. So as I said, look out for all of these links in the chat. By all means, feel free to jump in and do that as we go along. You don't need to wait till the end. Let's begin. So allow me to introduce our wonderful panelists today to kick off the summit. We have Tim Brennan, who is the creator of the original petition and the director of the Carry On Touring campaign. Ian Smith, the founder of UK Arts Work and director. UK Artwork and the director of the Carry On Touring campaign. Kevin Brennan, the MP for Cardiff West and a member of the DCMS committee, and Harriet Harman, the MP for Camberwell and Peckham. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. So just to kick us off, Tim, firstly, congratulations on the huge success of this petition. It's overwhelming to see the numbers growing and growing as they did at the time. I remember when it hit 100,000, we thought that they can't possibly ignore this. And then we managed to get to 280,000 and they ignored it. So Tim, can you just tell us why you started the petition? And for those who don't know, tell us a bit more about the Carry On Touring campaign and what it stands for.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started the petition. I could see there was going to be a massive problem facing creative touring in the EU post-Brexit. So basically, I decided to try and do something about it. I launched a petition and it went from there. So what we're trying to do is to urge our government to negotiate what we call a cultural passport, but essentially it's a visa waiver and a sort of cross-European work permit. And ultimately, the goal of that, what we want to try and do is to help people like myself and all the musicians and everyone else to get back on the road and to the Europe, to the EU 27 and do the stuff we love. But the campaign needs a lot of support. We've got fantastic support from across the industry, but we really need some big guns. You know, we need the Elton Johns and all the people like that. You know, because this campaign is about real lives. It's about sort of real jobs and real people. It's not just about musicians, though. It's about the techs. It's about all the different support staff. It's about the other sectors of the creative industries like fashion and the like. And we've got some fantastic speakers, as I said, speaking a bit later in the summit, and I look forward to hearing from them. So, thank you.
Amazing. And if Elton John is watching, thank you for your support. I'm sure he is. So, and Ian, you've been working with Tim on the campaign team along with Devo Connect from the outset. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty about what the government's failure to secure an exemption in the TCA really, really means for those who rely on touring for a living, not just in the UK, but across the whole of Europe. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'll just give you a quick, very brief intro who I am. I've been involved in the music industry around 40 years in general creative arts, run 2 agencies for 20 years. And in the back of that, I've been a musician, touring engineer, sound engineer, as you can probably see, and have worked for many years working on logistics within the EU in both directions. So the problem we've got is, of course, that we are totally, I'm trying to be polite, but totally screwed in terms of being able to tour easily and effectively now in both directions. It's actually in some ways easier for EU citizens because they only have one country to come into, that's the UK, but I'm going to return to that in a moment. But for us as UK citizens touring around the EU, you have 27 different options or regulations because all the countries are sovereign. So you have, even if some of them whose allowances range from 1 day, up literally 1 day, up to 90 days in any 1 year, you still have to inform the authorities in all of those places. I'm going to reflect that now, why it's a problem for the EU or the EU creatives. The problem EU creatives have is that many of them have for many years collaborated with UK creatives. So that is now much, much more difficult. Not only that, I am inundated generally since I started UK e-arts work. It's a free site I started a year ago for pre and post Brexit advice, totally free, apolitical, free, because I could see this coming. EU citizens do not know clearly what they need to do to come into the UK to work as creatives. There are actually 3 different routes, but as far as I'm aware, and I've done a lot of checking on this, the UK government have not reached out to those music creative arts export officers around Europe to welcome them into the UK. There's no clear advice. The one clear route, which is the cheapest route, which is called a certificate of sponsorship route, has not been put out there at all. I've got people constantly contacting me saying, how do I get into the UK once the pandemic is over? What do I need to do? Do I need a carnet? Which, no, if you're just carrying portable instruments, but that's another issue. You need a carnet, you need to register for VAT, you need an EORI number, which is allowing you to sell merchandise in and out of the UK and EU. There are exemptions on that, but it's complicated. And the problem is, at the moment, EU citizens, I'm using the EU because you've asked me the question from that perspective, EU creative citizens from across all of the arts and crew, dancers, musicians, actors, film technicians, sound engineers, lighting engineers, not even to mention logistics and cabotage. That'll freak everyone out because look it up, I'm not even going to go there. Cabotage basically screws the whole of the logistics industry in terms of movements within the EU and the UK in both directions, because the trade deal actually overwrote laws that were pre-existing the EU. It's a massive, massive problem. So to be more concise in everything I'm going to say, because I could talk for hours, as most people who know me would tell you. To be more concise, we need desperately, as a first step in all of this, because in some ways it's the easiest thing to solve out of everything I'm talking about. We need a work permit and visa waiver of some description that covers UK and UK touring personnel and anybody associated with the infrastructure for creative arts to be able to work easily, or as easily as possible. Brexit's over and done at the moment. Well, it's not done, it will go on for the next 30 years, we know that. But in reality, that's gone. We now need solutions. We don't need to talk about what happened. We need to talk about solutions now to allow all of our creative industries to be able to work in the EU and in both directions. I'll say one last thing before I finish. I have never really delved much more beyond film, video, and music within my work over the last 30, 40 years. I have been approached by ballet dancers. I've been approached by actors. I have been approached by models, all of which this is creating chaos for. Dancers and ballet at the moment, most of the time they go over, not just to work, but to audition. And if they're 90 days in 180 is taken up with audition time. So all of a sudden, they need a visa. They need an extended visa to be able to attend work and auditions in the EU. I'll not say any more than that. I'll put in the chat the UK Arts Work info thing, but I started with Tim and the Carry On Touring team because of what I was doing with that. And I am delighted to support this, and we're not stopping. If anyone's listening out there from the government, this will never end until there's a solution. The creative arts industry as one is together. And really, we're very, very determined. Thanks, Andrew. Hope that was okay.
Thank you very much, Ian. Now on to Kevin. So Kevin, you've been a fierce supporter of the Carry On Touring campaign in Parliament, working hard with the DCMS committee to put pressure on the government. What can you tell us about what's next for the committee's agenda, and where do you think the government is heading on this? I think you're on mute, Kevin.
That's not my fault. Somebody unmuted me, but happens all the time. Just last week we had the Secretary of State, Oliver Dowden, in front of the Select Committee. And just to let people know, I'm Kevin Brennan, no relation to the organiser of the petition. But I'm the MP for Cardiff West. I'm also a member of the Musicians Union and a musician myself. So I take a very active interest in this subject and other subjects related to music and the arts. And when he appeared before us last week, I asked him what his message would be, basically, to this gathering today on behalf of the government. And his message was that it is at the top of his in tray. Well, that's all very well for it to be at the top of the in tray. And the Prime Minister said he was working flat out on it as well. But nothing is happening. That's the problem. And nothing has been happening other than some scoping of the issue and some understanding of the scale of the issue of trying to organise this around 27 different EU member countries, the scale of the problems that people who want to tour are facing post-Brexit. And the problem is all of this should have been done before, quite clearly. And Ian's right, we shouldn't dwell too much on the past. And we are now no longer members of the European Union. But the fact is, in the Brexit negotiations, in the preparation, the government were warned in plenty of time that this would be a very, very real issue, and should have done all that preparatory work in advance, and should have negotiated something as part of the EU, the Brexit final agreement. That didn't happen, and since this issue's been raised, earlier in this year, I think the government basically have still simply been treading water, making very, very little progress indeed on it. Now, next month, on June the 10th, we finally managed to procure the attendance of Lord Frost, who's the government's chief Brexit negotiator, in front of our Select Committee, because there's a lot of passing of the buck going on around government in relation to this issue. But he is the person who's supposed to have principal responsibility for our negotiations with the European Union. The Secretary of State last week clarified that the work so far carried out by DCMS has been to understand the touring requirements. As I said, this is work that should have been done in any case, but ultimately they need sign off in government, from the other departments, and in particular from the Cabinet Office and Lord Frost to actually get to the negotiating table with the EU member states in order to sort this out. And so we'll be pressing, our next task, if you like, will be to press Lord Frost very hard indeed when he appears before us on June the 10th. We also expect some further information from the Secretary of State, because at his appearance at our committee, he promised he'd give a written response to the opinion that the Incorporated Society of Musicians recently commissioned from a QC, which was a 5-point rebuttal, basically, of the government's argument in relation to touring, which was published in The Independent last week. And he's also due to write to the committee to outline what his understanding is of the current position around the 17 member states he claimed at our meeting, that there were reasonable arrangements in place already for people to be able to tour. So watch this space for all of that. But we, like this campaign, as a select committee, will be continuing to press and hold the government to account on this issue. And that's where Ian is absolutely right. We need a solution here. This, is far, far too important to the UK. The creative industries are the fastest growing sector of our economy. So it's not only the right thing to do because it is the right thing to do, it's also in Britain's economic interest to get this sorted out. And just good luck to everybody who's involved in the campaign. And I look forward to continuing working with you into the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Kevin. And finally, Harriet, so later on, we'll be speaking to some of your parliamentary colleagues across all the parties about how they think we can fix the issue. And you've been working flat out yourself on this. I'm just wondering, what can you tell us about what you think Oliver Dowden should be doing to help people like Tim and Ian with the Carry On Touring campaign? And how do you think this can work out?
Well, I think what Oliver Dowden should be doing is kicking up a fuss inside government and saying this is got to be not just a question of the rhetoric of it being the top of the in tray and everybody working flat out and the Prime Minister saying it needs to be sorted. There needs to be some action on it. And I think to help and assist him get into that frame of mind, sorry, the cat is knocking this thing. I think the work that Kevin Brennan is doing on the select committee, the DCMS select committee, is absolutely critical. I think the good news is we are not trying to change the government's mind. They are accepting this is important. They're accepting that the cultural sector is very important. They're accepting that it needs to be able to tour without obstacles in Europe, and they're accepting that it's their responsibility to fix it, albeit they're quite prone to saying it's also the EU's problem, not agreeing. So we're not trying to get them to change their mind about what needs to be done. What we're trying to do is get them to do some flipping work on it and to push it up the agenda. I mean, you can all see in the news every single day, if it's not fish, it's beef. If it's not beef, it's the automotive industry. There is so much juggling for negotiating headspace within government, and therefore it's a question of establishing the facts to get them really drilled into the public's mind, as well as into government ministers' minds. And it's a question of keeping it high on the agenda so the government don't feel they can just park it whilst they're dealing with all sorts of other things. One of the things the Prime Minister said when he gave evidence to the liaison committee, which is the committee of all the select committees, is he said, this is something we've got to sort out. Lord Frost is the minister responsible for sorting it out, but at least we've got time because COVID means that there's no touring happening anyway. Well, of course, there isn't time. And there isn't time because things take a long time to negotiate. And secondly, there isn't time because people need to plan and set things up in advance. So I think it's a question of describing the pressure and pushing it up the agenda and creating a row. Every week there needs to be stuff in the media that we can all support and echo, like there was last week from the LSO, like Elton John did, so we can keep pushing it up the agenda. And I think our argument is that this is important to EU touring because the music sector is important. I mean, obviously other cultural issues. It's important culturally to us, it's important to our identity, it's important to our quality of life, and it's important economically. And the finances of the sector, the business model, depend on EU touring and won't work without these obstacles being taken down. And also that we will suffer a creative deterioration if we become isolated. This actually affects the quality of the product, if you like. I know that's not the right way to put it, but creativity is about collaboration both ways, and therefore let's not take it for granted. Let's not have the government being blamed for failure. Let's have them being pressurized to do a fix on it. And I think in the lead up to June the 10th, where Lord Frost is appearing before Kevin and the Select Committee, I think it'd be important for them to feel more pressure in the lead up to June the 10th before he comes before the Select Committee. Could we relaunch Tim's petition and get some more hundreds of thousands of signatures on it? Could there be more initiatives taken by David Warburton with our support as the all-party parliamentary committee on music? So I think that we need to just be doing things in order to push it up the agenda. And I think you mentioned, Andrew, that it will particularly affect young musicians who find their economic and creative opportunities in Europe as much as in the UK. I think for those who've got established careers but who need touring, will be thinking, well, actually, I'm going to do something else because I can't do it the way I've been doing it, and therefore they will just leave the industry. And I think that for top performers who are established, many of them will relocate into Europe, and we'll have the equivalent of the brain drain, but we need to find something that we call it, which is not the brain drain, the arts drain, where people who can will just feel that because they want to be part of that European scene and they can't be doing it from here, they will find the opportunities to be welcomed to actually leave us and be in Europe. So I haven't even mentioned the points that Ian mentioned about EU people coming here and fueling up our festivals and helping our tourism industry and helping us enjoy our lives. So really, it's just all power to your elbow, and we just need to create a row about it in terms of noise, but not a party political row, which makes them fight us. We need them to be pressing the EU, and we need to be pressing them.
Excellent. A very good point. Well made, Harriet. Neville Farmer came up with a very good idea for a name rather than the brain drain. He said the arts departs, which I think is quite good.
The arts departs. Brilliant.
But thank you, Harriet, and thank you everyone for your words and sharing your experiences there. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind everyone the link is at the side to please sign the petition as we go along with your own comments. Now, moving along, I would just like to say that there are many supporters of this campaign who sadly can't be here today, but they have provided us with some pre-recorded messages. So let's just give a shout out to these people.
Hello, my name is David Knopfler. I'm a touring singer-songwriter and I'm a founder member of the rock group Dire Straits. The music industry, touring musicians like myself have been urgently explaining for 5 years now to anyone who will listen why Brexit is hugely damaging to our ability to perform. Freedom of movement and frictionless travel in and out of the EU has been an essential component to keeping our costs doable. We urgently need the UK government to stop wringing their hands like Pontius Pilate and to get serious about owning the indisputable fact that they created this problem by leaving the EU without any deal for us musicians, and that they need to do a lot more to fix it than falsely blaming the EU and pretending, as Boris Johnson has been doing, to be proactively doing something about it when in fact he's done the opposite. It's not only a loss for us, but it's also a loss for the Treasury. We pay taxes on these overseas earnings and we won't be paying them if we're unable to tour. Something needs to be done. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Jessie Murphy. I'm a freelance violinist and founder of Let Music Live. I just want to say the hugest good luck to everyone at Carry On Touring for the summit today. the work you've been doing over the last few months is really inspiring and incredible. And I just hope that today can perhaps be the start of a new understanding of how important it is for the creative industries to be able to travel to their work in the EU. Obviously, as an industry, we're still really in lockdown. We can't begin to rebuild properly until audiences can gather. And so when that does finally happen and that day comes, we need so desperately to be able to take every opportunity and make every connection possible. It's not just about work in the EU either, because the way freelancing works is that every time someone gets a job, for example, in the EU, they create a vacancy in their sort of regular gig, as it were, in the UK, and then they will probably need someone to fill in for some of their work they normally do, etc., etc. So actually, every time someone gets a job in the EU, they probably create 5 jobs in the UK for the duration of that. So good luck to everybody.
Hi, I'm Pat Fulgoni, vocalist, promoter, producer, and I support Carry On Touring. During the pandemic, myself and many other people that I know have been hit very hard indeed. Some have left the industry altogether. Many are excluded UK. Many have ended up on universal credit and are struggling to feed their families, receiving less per month than an expensive roll of wallpaper. This government needs to get a grip on the crisis facing the creative industries in this country. It makes no sense to abandon the music biz like this, once our 3rd largest export. To be denied work and touring in the EU after COVID is absolutely brain dead. Get back to the negotiating table. And do not underestimate the detrimental effect the general lack of support for music is having, not only on the industries, but the nation's health.
I support Carry On Touring and all it represents. During the pandemic, some, not all of our industry have been supported well by the government. I urgently request your support now to push us up the negotiating agenda and find a way to achieve bilateral and permit-free touring. All touring art forms will be affected, and without your urgent attention, the support given to some will be failed by all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Howard Goodall. I'm a composer and a broadcaster, and I travel around the world to conduct my music, and my music is, I'm very glad to say, performed everywhere around the world. I wholeheartedly support this campaign, Carry On Touring. You know, in the early and mid 20th century, people often ask why it is that American popular music took off so fast and so in such a widespread way before almost any other country had caught up. And one of the reasons for that is that in the 1930s, 40s and 50s, and you were a band in New Orleans or Chicago or New York or LA or Baltimore, you could get in a van and go and perform a 60, 70, 80 date concert tour, pretty much with just your gear and a driver. And by doing that, you had a huge domestic market of 200 million people, and you've got your reputation out there, and you've got your music heard, and you've got a fan base, and that could lead to radio play and whole careers. Now, we had that when we were members of the EU. You could get in a van as a young band starting out, or you were very famous as well, and you could simply just go across the channel and start performing in city after city, town after town, club after club, didn't matter how big or small, whatever suited your budget or your band or your genre, and you could perform easily and without extra cost in all those places. So we had a home market of 400 million people, which was enormously successful for us, particularly us Brits, with our popular music. So we just very much hope that this campaign will nudge and push government to talk to other governments in Europe to try and make this, at least to reduce some of the problems, if not take them away altogether. Because of course it's not just visas and passports, it's also carnets and haulage and cabotage and VAT. These are all issues that affect touring. So yes, I support this campaign wholeheartedly. Good luck.
Hi, my name's Horace Trubridge. I'm the General Secretary of the Musicians Union. I'm sorry I can't be with you today. I 100% support what you're doing. Carry On Touring has brought together some fantastic people from the industry, and we all want the same thing. We all want to get back to working in our backyard, which is basically Europe. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement that was negotiated by the Conservative government completely overlooked our needs, and now we're faced with this terrible situation. And that's on top of 14 or 15 months of no work. So we are desperate to rebuild our business, desperate to rebuild our careers, and very keen to bump up the economy's coffers with the 5.8 billion that the music industry is worth to the government. So today, make sure that you make a difference. Make sure that we take things forward, and we're a real force of nature in getting some change here. The MU will be behind you 100%, and we hope you have a fantastic summit. Sorry I can't be there, but I'm with you in spirit.
Excellent. Thank you to everyone who made contributions there. That was David Knopfler, Horace Trubridge of the MU, Pat Fulgoni, Howard Goodall, Marina Riordan, and Jessie Murphy. Now, to get on with the summit, let's see what we can work out. We have 3 delegations. The UK delegation is first up, then the EU delegation, and then the UK parliamentarians all coming together. So now we'll be inviting people just to say a little something, just getting on to the point of what will a cultural passport mean for you. So first up, we have Tamara Cynic, the Fashion Roundtable, then on to some others. But if I could just at this point ask everyone to please keep their answers as concise as possible, so we can rattle through everything that we need to. So Tamara, are you there?
Hi, it's actually Tamara Gingic. Nice to join you. That's
Sorry,
okay,
Tamara.
I'm used to it. So Fashion Roundtable was set up by me when I analysed having both a career in the fashion industry, but also in Parliament, that my sector wasn't part of the conversations, and that I had to almost align myself with the music industry to show the unique talent that we have. We're the largest of the creative industries, to put that into perspective, and we make 35 billion for the UK economy, or we did, and we employ nearly 1 million people. And it's a vast industry, and it was, like the rest of the creative industries, growing 11% year on year. We put together 2 Brexit reports, our most recent Brexit report, which I will put in the chat. I think the easiest thing is if you have a look at that came out a couple of weeks ago. In that, we've got 11 recommendations. And from those recommendations, while I know that John's going to come on in a minute from Models One, and I welcome the Stop the Clock declaration that's happening on Tier 5 visas, it's still very much the UK having to fold, and ultimately that doesn't help us as UK talent working in the EU. So there needs to be a recognition of that. Equally, if we are going to get a deal with America, that deal, because it's our high net talent that goes to America, has to stop us being drawn into the American tax system to such a level that you end up with a talent brain drain going to the US, because that is the direction of travel that already happens. But you are directed into getting 2, from my side of the sector, O1s, and then into a green card, and then you're always paying them tax. So I think it's going to be very hard for the UK to take that on. We need to reinstate the VAT retail export scheme. It is absolutely insane that we have now stopped giving a VAT incentive to tourists coming to the UK once we get out of lockdown, and we need to add garment workers to the shortage occupation list. Those 2 things are in the UK government's gift. The rest of it is more and more about dealing with IP, rules of origin, etc. I accept they have to go back to the table in Brussels, and equally organise freedom of travel with the other member states, because it's one thing, the way that visas work, they assume that you live in this world of employed set rules, and the reality is you might be flying into Paris, going to Germany, Spain, Italy, and that all wipes out not only the fashion industry but music and theatre. So those 11 recommendations are on our Brexit paper, and I'll put that in the chat, and I think if you could all have a look at that, that would be great. Thank you.
Tamara, thank you so much. Tamara there from the Fashion Roundtable. As we said, this is a multi-industry conversation, and we all need to be in this together. If I could just remind everyone to keep their chat between 2 and 3 minutes. Next up, we're going to welcome David Martin from the Featured Artists Coalition. Hello, David.
Hi, Andrew. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
No worries, David.
So yeah, the Featured Artists Coalition is the UK's trade body representing the rights and interests of music artists. We represent artists from all genres, all backgrounds, and at all career stages. So from those that haven't even played a gig yet, right through to seasoned stadium tourers. Some of the things that I'll say have already been touched on, but I think they're important to reiterate. So the impact of our exit from the EU is already having a profound effect on our industry. We're already seeing shows cancelled or being turned down. It is happening right now. And regardless of the stature of an artist or a performer, all of those that travel to Europe will be impacted by the lack of provision in the trade and cooperation agreement. Whether for a large band that cost is prohibitive as a result of haulage rules, or whether there's not even a work permit cost, but just a tricky permit application process with the need for a notice period for an emerging artist, which means that they're unable to accept that last minute gig. It will affect all of those whose careers are supported by touring. Elton John has been very vocal, as somebody mentioned earlier, and he's been very upfront. His shows will continue to happen in Europe, but from the outside, they might not look any different. From behind the scenes, it might mean less work for British production, British crew, or fewer British musicians on that stage. There will be an effect. And the phrase world beating has become somewhat of a parody in this country in the last 14 months. But for music, it's true. We are world beating. It's the thing that the UK population is most proud of. And it's our international calling card. It's incredibly important to us. And PRS data shows that there were over 20,000 live shows from UK performers in the EU in 2019. We know that that figure is likely to be much higher. The true figure is likely to be much higher. But by comparison, the nearest market for UK performers is the US, and that accounts for only a quarter of the number that the EU performances account for. And it's not only the tour itself, which somebody pointed to earlier. Touring will often be a loss leader for emerging artists, but it's what allows their careers to be built. So it's where they grow their audiences, get opportunities for other appearances, TV, festivals, radio, and it's where they develop their fan bases who go on to consume their music, stream them, watch live streams, and buy their merchandise. And it's also where they learn their craft. So we're here to support government. We don't want to bash them, but we do need an urgent focus on this, and we do really want to support them with solutions. And I'll just finish by talking about what Ed O'Brien said in his DCMS Select Committee hearing. Ed O'Brien of Radiohead said there wouldn't be a Radiohead if it hadn't been for touring in Europe in the band's formative stages. I think that says it all.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. David Martin from the FAC there, as well as putting out the economic and the human impact, the cultural soft power impact of what stands to be lost as well. So moving on now to Noel McLean from the Broadcasting, Entertainment, Communications and Theatre Union. Are you there, Noel?
Hi, I'm Andrew. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate that very much. So yeah, I'm from BEC2. BEC2 is a trade union in the UK that represents thousands of members in the arts and creative industries who are non-performing grades. So lots of tech grades, lots of backstage people as well, many of whom made their living and honed their skills, to be fair, working on tours within the EU. Important, I think, to highlight the point that Ian made earlier, that music's a big part of that, but it's not the only part. Lots of theatrical touring protection are affected by it as well. So you'll hear lots today about facts, and they're going to keep being repeated, and that's because they are absolute facts. The UK is a net exporter of tech and tech skills. UK technicians are the envy of the world, highly skilled people working in high-end technologies. Prior to the pandemic lockdown, the creative sector was the fastest growing sector of the UK economy. It had a growth rate of more than twice that of the UK economy as a whole. That was overall contributing £11 billion to the UK economy. So we've got an economic and cultural powerhouse here, and the lack of specific provisions in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement puts all that at risk, and it leaves people facing a mountain of bureaucracy and cost, neither of which they can afford. We can't lose sight of the fact that it's been made earlier. We need to make it again. We are emerging from lockdown. At the very time when people need support and help, the government seems to be giving them more barriers and more obstacles to get over. Our members are reporting that since Brexit, job alerts that they relied on in the past for years are now coming through with an explicit sentence saying that UK passport holders need not apply. We've got testimony after testimony from our members proving how the current arrangements as they are could end up depriving them of about 50% of their annual income. Our members' careers, because of what they do, are often built on a series of engagements, multiple tours throughout the year, kind of bolted together, that often go longer than the length of one single kind of tour. But that's the financial cost. But there's another cost here. It's almost incalculable, and that's the cost that's going to be lost because of these barriers in terms of cultural exchange. People are seriously discussing leaving the industry. Some already have. Resolving this, sitting down and getting this sorted out really could save those people's careers and keep them in the industry. And if we lose those people, then we'll lose the skills. So we welcome anything that removes or reduces these barriers, not only because it would help restore their earnings to our members, but it would keep people in the industry and keep the UK as a global leader in this specialised area. BEC2, along with others, has campaigned tirelessly for an agreement which protects jobs, livelihoods, and the fragile ecology that only comes about through cultural exchange. We've written to the Secretary of State, the Chancellor, and indeed the Prime Minister on this issue. Many in the panel have done the same. Through our European colleagues and our affiliations internationally, we've also raised this directly with the President of the EU Commission. I've long been an admirer, actually, of the DCMS Select Committee, people like Kevin, but across the political spectrum, the work they've been doing, I've long admired that. But that admiration is only swamped by the sheer frustration of watching the Secretary of State. To be honest, to see him claim this is top of his inbox is actually laughable. And then to see him claim that they're assessing the impact and working out what to do, I find fairly patronising and a little bit offensive. I say patronising because it feels as if we're being patted on the head and told we don't understand how complex these matters are. And it's offensive because this matter was raised to them long before Brexit took place. And workable solutions that don't mean reopening the TCA have been on his desk because people in the industry have provided them and sent them to him. So we seem to be in one of those rare situations where an agreement would benefit everybody, but without one, everyone will suffer. And to not take hold of that opportunity, grasp it, work on it and deal with it would be damaging, heartbreaking and take this country back. So I'm very happy to be here and I'm very happy to pledge the full support of BEC2 for this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noel McLean there from BEC2. Moving on, if I could just remind everyone to please keep their responses to within 2 to 3 minutes. Next up, we have Deborah Annette from the Incorporated Society of Musicians. Deborah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Excellent.
Is that okay? Yeah, we're all there.
Right.
Good.
Thank you, Deborah.
You never quite know when you start off. I just want to say a big thank you to Carry On Touring for organising today. And what's so powerful about Carry On Touring is it is right across the creative industries. We've heard from Tamara and from Noel at BEC2, which just shows the strength of Carry On Touring. We knew that Brexit was going to be hugely problematic for musicians, really, right from 2016, when we had the referendum. And the ISM, which represents over 10,500 musicians, has now undertaken 5 reports into the impact of Brexit. And every year, year on year since 2016, we've seen that adverse impact mounting. The one we produced last year, May 2020, was very stark. It showed that musicians were losing their jobs in Europe already. That was before the TCA, and that people were being told they had to have an EU passport in order to audition. The work we've been doing recently with the Musicians Union has just demonstrated how this is now snowballing, with musicians losing work opportunities, losing jobs, and also having to shoulder huge, huge costs now if they want to even do a very short session in Europe. And that is incredibly damaging for an industry, which, as everybody has said, contributes so much to the UK economy. But the creative industries itself is worth £116 billion. It has 3 million people working in it. It is absolutely huge. It is bigger than construction or finance. And I am sure if construction or finance were suffering as much as we are, government would be doing something about it. And at the moment, although we've had lots of nice words from DCMS, very little is actually happening. So far, what we have had is some guidance notes. But frankly, Most of us in the sector knew what was going to happen way before the TCA. What we need, and it's really, really simple, and everybody agrees about it, we need to sort the twin problems of people and goods. That's how it splits down. It's really simple. For people, you need a visa waiver agreement. And the ISM went out and got a QC to draft a visa waiver agreement, which has been with Oliver Dowden now for about 4.5 months. It's not difficult. It's 4 pages long. All they have to do is pick up the phone and speak to the EU. The next thing we need is bilateral agreements to sort out work permits. There are several key EU states where this is particularly difficult, Spain being one of them. Again, not difficult. Work out what you need and make contact with the states that the creative industries need some kind of movement when it comes to work permits. Not difficult. Then we get to goods, and this basically breaks into, I like to call it the 3 C's: carnets, CITES, and cabotage. Now, these are very complicated, but we still need a bit more clarity in relation to carnets. We need CITES totally sorted, and I'm not going to get into the detail of that because it's just too mind-bending. And lastly, cabotage, I'm afraid, is going to need the TCA to be reopened. That's what it looks like at the moment, although the Department for Transport still seems a bit unclear as to how the TCA works, which is a bit troubling, really. You would have hoped that the civil servants had really got to grips with some of these provisions by now, but that's where we are. So as a sector, we need to be working together, as Harriet Harman said, to put pressure on government. It's not good enough to be top of the in tray. We need to be at the very, very forefront of Lord Frost's mind. So he is putting pressure right across the government, but into the EU as well, to sort out all these various issues, because they're sortable. The solutions are there. They were set out in a letter to Boris Johnson about 3 weeks ago, and that letter was signed by over 300 organisations. It's not rocket science. Just do it, government.
Amen. Thank you very much, Deborah, there for the Incorporated Society of Musicians. Please keep your comments coming in. There's been a lot of recommendations for Noel to replace Oliver Dowden. Maybe we should start a petition for that. Who knows? If I could also remind everyone to please keep their responses to within 3 minutes. Next up, we have Duncan Buchanan from the Road Haulage Association. Duncan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I hope you can hear me okay.
Excellent. Take it away, Duncan.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and for me to be able to speak to you here today. I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can, so I scripted myself a little bit more than I would normally. I want to actually explain where we are with road haulage as a result of the TCA and what the circumstances are for road haulage. Bearing in mind that road haulage is an essential part of your businesses. Without road haulage, you go nowhere. Without the ability to move the goods that you need to run the tours and events, you've got nothing. So I'll keep things as simple as possible. The TCA limits all commercial road haulage by UK companies in the EU and vice versa, EU companies in the UK. The restrictions apply to people operating their own vehicles as well as haulage companies that are carrying the goods on other people's behalf. So commercial road haulage embraces everyone. It includes carrying any goods used commercially. If anyone is getting paid, you're in scope of the restrictions for road haulage. So what are those limits? In simple terms, and this is dumbed down a little bit just for simplicity's sake, no more than 2 trips can be done in the EU by a UK road haulage operator that includes you as businesses, no more than 2 trips within the EU after you've arrived in the EU, and vice versa. They've got the same restriction here. That means that you can put on no more than 3 distinct events at different locations in the EU on any one trip. That's the same for EU coming in as well as for us going anywhere in Europe. There's some subtleties around that which are more restrictive, but you don't need to know too much about it. That's in a simple terms. So how is that different from where we were before the TCA? I think this is important to understand. Firstly, international road haulage between EU member states, all EU member states, is completely unrestricted. So we had no limits on how many member states we could do on a tour. We could do as many individual countries as we wanted. There were limits of cabotage within those member states, but broadly speaking, you could actually do as many visits for as long as you like around the whole of EU. In addition, anyone carrying their own goods had no restrictions on them either. So if you're an orchestra carrying your own truck, you could do anything you like. So what do we need? Where do we need to go now? Well, firstly, the UK and the EU need to work with the TCA and exempt people carrying their own goods. So an orchestra can come into the UK and do 4 gigs, and someone can do it the other way around. It doesn't affect the road haulage industry at all. It has no competitive impact at all. It is just purely a cultural event. The second thing is we need to develop an exemption for tours where the goods carried from an origin all the way around a tour and return to the country of origin are exempt from cabotage rules. That's what we need. But in the meantime, what you're faced with now is the reality that anyone doing more than 3 events in the EU will need to use EU hauliers. Any EU company that comes to the UK that is doing more than 3 events will have to use UK hauliers. Otherwise, you'll be breaking the law. So that's where we're at the moment. I hope I've been brief enough.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you very much for that. This is something we certainly need further clarity on. Next up, we have Louise McMullen from Equity. Can I once again remind people to please keep their responses to within 3 minutes because we have quite a lot to get through today. Louise, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I'll keep it very brief because a lot of what I wanted to say has been said very well by Noel, by Deborah and by others. I'm simply here to give support and solidarity from Equity's 46,000 members for this campaign and to say thank you to Carry On Touring for providing such an inclusive forum for the whole of the industry to come together. We represent, people tend to think of us as the union for actors, but we also represent dancers, singers, stage management, entertainers who are working everywhere from holiday resorts throughout Europe to cruise ships. We represent people who work as fashion models and people who are dependent on small-scale touring throughout Europe to keep their creative businesses going. People who rely on that one gig doing a TV commercial that might be filmed in Portugal in 3 days from now, and they're relying on that to pay their mortgage for the next couple of months. So as you said in your opening remarks at the start of the summit, some of the people who are going to be hardest hit by this are those people who are independent artists. They're relying on one-off gigs. There are people who work in small-scale touring and in the more independent areas of our sector. They're the emerging artists, they're the young artists. Many of them are established artists, but maybe for the whole of their career, they've worked in a very, very precarious end of the industry. They love what they do, but the gig economy, we are the original gig economy. It's a tough place to work as it is. And coming out of the back of the pandemic, a lot of people have been excluded from government support. A lot of people are finding they're now excluded from social security support and on an ongoing basis. What we really need to see from the government is a bit of hope and a bit of support for people who throughout the years, whether it was austerity after 2008 or whether it was through the pandemic, they're resilient people. They want to get back to work. They work incredibly hard. They're incredibly entrepreneurial in many ways, but they need something to be able to help them hold on to the hope, stay in the industry, and make sure that that people who work in this industry aren't just from elite backgrounds, that it is an inclusive place and that we can represent everybody going forward to have a good working life and carry on and stay with us and produce the great content that this country has always produced.
Thank you very much, Louise there. Louise from Equity, reminding us that there is the very real danger of a glass ceiling being created across all of culture unless they retrain as fish. Next up, Tom Keel from UK Music. Can you hear me, Tom?
Brilliant, thank you. I'm Tom Keel from UK Music. We're the umbrella body for the commercial music industry, and apologies for any repetition from other people's points, but if anything, I think that underlines the unity that exists on this issue across the creative sector as a whole. The UK music industry is worth 5.8 billion to the economy. It employs 200,000 people. The EU member states themselves are a vital part of our 2.9 million export contribution. But beyond the economics itself, the sector also contributes immensely to the UK's soft power and has profound impacts on the social health and well-being of the nation. Exposure to music enhances cognitive abilities by 17%. It's also said that participation in arts results in cost savings to the NHS of something like 170 million per year in reduced GP visits. Music is a profoundly good thing, and it's something that the UK is uniquely good at. And this is very well recognised by the European Commission itself. In 2019, they said that UK acts dominated the European panorama. When you kind of look at the appetite for UK music across Europe, that is profound. 17% of albums sold in Belgium are from UK artists, 14% from Netherlands, 11% from Austria. 1 in 10 albums sold in Germany, Sweden, Spain, and Italy are from UK artists. And obviously, these are countries where English is not the first naturally spoken language, but I think they have obviously their own fantastic repertoire too. But I think those figures really profoundly show the popularity and appetite that there is there for UK music content. In order to enhance this, though, we need access to market, and the failure in the trade and cooperation agreement shows that, with regards to touring, has put cultural exchange at risk. There will now be costly bureaucratic and work permit requirements for UK artists entering many of these key markets, and the lack of clarity in a number of issues such as cabotage and carnets has obviously already been very clearly articulated by many. Despite the blame game that has existed between the EU and the UK after the agreement, I think what is important to recognise, though, is that both sides have actually recognised that there will be issues, and I think we need to build on that now to develop a shared understanding and concern. Basically, you can't fix a problem if neither side agrees there's a problem. So in order to find a way forward, we need to build on that foundation for any diplomatic situation. There is essentially an agreement that there is a problem that needs to be fixed.
Excellent.
The Prime Minister said in March that the government is working flat out on issues that have arisen from musicians looking to tour as a result of the post-Brexit deal. However, these formal negotiations have not taken place. It's vital for the UK and the EU to come together in order to find a way forward. Otherwise, everyone will lose out. We need new multilateral and bilateral agreements. They are our passport out of this mess. More broadly, it will be our grassroots part of our sector that are hit most hardly by this, and particularly in the context of the financial help that they need, and obviously suffering depleted incomes as a result of the impact of the recent pandemic. The government has made 23 million available to support our fishing industry navigate Brexit, but the absence of similar support for the music industry has left many wondering whether the government has gone fishing on us too.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt there, Tom. We do have to move along because we've got quite a lot to get through, but thank you very much.
I was final line. This is a crucial time and event, and we bringing together many people and wish everyone well today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom Keel from UK Music there, talking about the very human aspect once again of the soft power we stand to lose. Moving on now to John Horner from the British Fashion Model Agents Association, quite a mouthful. John, if you could keep it as tight as possible, please, because we have quite a lot to get through, that'd be great. Thank you, guys.
I will be as tight as possible. BFMA, we represent the fashion model industry. It's a £250 million business. There are about 10,000 models represented, which is a big number. And of those, about 30% are European Union models. And what's ironic, as has already been said, is partly because of the negotiations that we, together with the British Fashion Council, have had with the Home Office, have now made it easier for foreign people to come to the UK than it is for British people to go to Europe, which is an absurdity, but that's the reality of it. The thing about fashion models is that it's an international market, and you'll get a booking today for a job tomorrow. That means you've got a job in Spain, you'll catch a flight first thing tomorrow morning, you'll do the job in Spain, you'll fly back tomorrow night or the night after, job done. That is no longer possible. It takes between days and weeks to get visas and or work permits to any one of 27 different member states, as you are all, I'm sure, well aware. It is a disaster. And we're now finding that clients are beginning to say, and put COVID on one side for this, they're beginning to say it's not worth bothering working with EU models. It's too much of a pain in the butt to get them here to do the work. We're beginning to lose work, and the models are beginning to lose work. And that is a major, major problem, and it's not going to get any easier going forward. There are big, big brands, Inditex, Mango and the like in Spain, which is, of course, one of the most difficult markets to enter, it seems. And that's a major, major problem. And our real difficulty is that the British model is world known as some of the best anywhere ever. Take Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, etc. And we won't find models wanting to join our industry, and there will be a fall off. We are off the top table, and that's not a place that we can afford to be. And as has already been said, it's an absurdity that both the EU negotiators and our own negotiators claim they wanted a deal, and yet they both walked away from it. I think Britain walked away from it rather more than the EU. I'd love to know exactly why, because we've never been given absolute clarity as to what the reasons are. But either way, of course, the model industry supports this very important group. So best to you all. Thank you.
Excellent. John, thank you very much. John from the British Fashion Model Agents Association, again, reminding us the devastating cross-cultural impact. We'll be joined by the EU delegation shortly, but firstly, could we just hear quickly from Steve Davies from the Advertising Producers Association?
Thank you for inviting us to be part of this brilliant and critical to us too movement. In very much the same way as everybody else, the commercials production companies that I represent move back and forth through Europe. The talent they represent moves back and forth through Europe, and often on short notice. So we'll go to Europe to do a shoot. Amazon and Google, who love the talent, next brilliant of producers and directors and art directors and things in the UK, will come from America and they'll commission the shoot here. The key talent is here. We may then go to Slovenia to shoot it. If we lose the flexibility to do that, just like with musicians and everybody else, we'll be losing out. We'll lose our preeminence as a centre of advertising. We'll lose money. And, again, we're a critical industry for the economy. The bizarre obsession the government has with fishing, which I'm sure everyone represented on here represents an industry that is more important financially to the economy than fishing is. So just to reiterate that we're very keen to be part of it and to see that this fight is on behalf of our members too. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much to all of our UK delegates there, pointing out all of the different businesses, organization, real people, real lives, real jobs, all of the different areas of culture that this will affect. So thank you very, very much for your time and excellent points there. Next up, we're moving on to the EU delegation panel, who are here to support the Carry On Touring campaign. First up, we have a pre-recorded message from Johannes Studinger of the UNI MEI.
I'm Johannes Studinger of Uni, Media, Entertainment and Arts. We are a global union federation bringing together more than 140 unions and guilds representing artists, crew and staff behind stage and camera in the entertainment industry. We support Carry On Touring. During the pandemic, our colleagues in the entertainment industry have been hit hard, especially the many freelance and self-employed workers. No or little job opportunities, lack of adequate relief and recovery measures have left entertainment workers without income. Uncertainty of the sustainability of the industry and their career post-COVID-19 are a heavy burden on all professionals. During this crisis, the cultural and entertainment sector are facing a new challenge post-Brexit. The EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement makes no mention of cross-border mobility of productions and workers in the sector, and thus fails to take into consideration the specificity and unique needs of the cultural and entertainment sector. No tours mean no work. The barriers to touring also mean no exchange of culture, skills and experiences, leaving us all poorer, especially given the fragility of the sector as we emerge from the lockdown. This industry is huge to the economy and so important to everybody's social well-being. The cultural exchange is what makes Europe richer. The UK is part of the cultural Europe and part of the European entertainment sector. This is about real people, real lives, real job, and our culture and our diversity. We need to have touring across the UK-EU border. Together with our colleagues of the International Federation of Actors and the International Federation of Musicians, our UK member union BECTU, we will continue to put on pressure on the European Union and the UK government to reopen negotiations, to secure a free cultural work permit for touring professionals. We all are in this together, and together we can make this happen.
Thank you very much for that message from Johannes there. We will now move on to the rest of the EU delegation, starting with Helen Smith from Impala. Can you hear me, Helen?
Yeah, sure, I can. Hi.
Excellent. Hi, Helen.
Hi
Great. So,
there.
Helen, so what does UK-EU touring mean to you, and what do you see as the solution?
Well, Impala is the trade association representing independent music companies. So obviously touring is really important to all of our members. And when Brexit happened, it was a clear priority for Impala to be sure that the EU takes on board the concerns and the UK. And obviously what we talk about is making sure that Europe remains a European sector where there should be no distinction. And that's what we all were told about the trade agreement, that things would be able to continue, and somehow we're in this strange position whereby we don't really know what happened, but the EU made an offer and the UK said it wasn't good enough. So it's clear that there is a fundamental difference of approach when it comes to freedom of movement from the UK. And I think that needs to be dealt with when we look to the future. I think what Tom mentioned about trying to focus on the common points, the common areas. So there is an agreement that there's something wrong. And I think there's an agreement that we can fix it, or we should be able to fix it. And I would hope that the deal is really now, okay, so what's wrong with this agreement? There won't just be touring. There will be other areas to be tweaks and changes. So we would see it as part of a kind of ongoing exercise. Okay, so we have these issues. How does it work? How are we going to accommodate those in moving forward? So we expect that both parties to get back to the negotiation table. People have said it already, and we think that that's really simple. The cultural sectors have been recognised by the EU as one of 14 priority ecosystems for recovery post-COVID, and it's a complete nonsense to think that the fundamental basis of our sectors, which is basically touring and travel, is affected by the trade agreement. So we need the negotiators to get back around the table. It's as simple as that.
Excellent. Helen Smith from Impala there. Thank you very much. Moving on, if I could just ask everyone to try and remember to keep their responses to within 2 to 3 minutes, as we have a very stacked schedule today, you lucky people. Next up, we have Mark Adam Harold, the former Knight Mayor of Vilnius. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello.
Excellent.
Yeah, greetings from Lithuania. I'm British, but I've been living here for 16 years, which is as long as Lithuania has been in the European Union. When I first came here, I was making a lot of events bringing British artists to Lithuania and trying to get Lithuanians over to Britain. There's been literally hundreds of thousands of Lithuanians who have lived in Britain for a period of time or are still living in Britain. And so there's great links between the two countries. As a soft power was mentioned earlier, and I can assure you that in my city, British music was #1 for a long time. We're not sure if that's going to continue, and I'm hearing from people that there's just not, it's not worth trying to book a British artist anymore when you can get a German much easier and not have to worry about any paperwork, which music promoters are not famous for wanting to worry about anyway. They're quite busy people. Good news, I'll end on from Lithuania, is that the culture minister couldn't be here today, but he's very keen on this idea indeed. And the foreign minister has promised to go for a beer with me. So I'm going to see if we can get at least Lithuania together with the other Baltic states to make a Baltic music bubble and allow Brits to come over here as much as they want and see if we can do that unilaterally or trilaterally. And hopefully that would give some impetus to this effort on an EU level.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that insight. Raised a good point there. I think there seems to be a kind of attitude among a lot of the government that because we're a country that produced the Beatles, that we'll always be fine. When in actual fact, there isn't any reason why European countries wouldn't want their domestic music product to be the dominant one, naturally. So we need to try and redress the balance wherever we can. Great. Moving on, if I could remind everyone to stick to 2 to 3 minutes. Forgive my pronunciation if I get this wrong. Dirbnell Murphy from the Federation of International Actors. How was that?
It wasn't bad. So yes, my name's Derval Murphy, and I'm actually from the International Federation of Actors, but it has a French acronym, so hence the FIA. And we had that video message from my colleague Johannes Studinger, who is from UniMe, our sister federation, and both himself and myself are 2 of the trade unions in the European Arts and Entertainment Alliance. So that's the Trade Union Federation for the Arts and Entertainment sector at EU level. And as such, we're social partners at EU level, and we've been in really close dialogue from the outset with the management organizations, the producers, the film, television producers, and also the live performance employers on this topic, and anticipating all of these problems that have now arisen. It's something that we flagged up again and again to negotiators on the EU delegation in the Brexit negotiations, and we've continued to flag them up now that the TCA is in place. And really, I can only echo the message from Johannes that this mobility obstacle will really continue to hamper recovery in the cultural and creative sector across Europe that has been really brought to its knees by this pandemic. Additionally, more recently, we've written to Ursula von der Leyen to again just raise the issue, to stress that the decline in cultural exchange will be a massive loss to all of the EU and to the UK, that there'll be an impact for venues, for festivals, but also a major impact on audiovisual production, which is so dependent on mobile workforce and on these vital collaborations that happen among creatives and among financial and economic contributors from right across the EU and the UK coming together on all kinds of productions. So I really hope that we can continue to keep that pressure up. We absolutely support this campaign, and I think that the social partners will have an important role to play going forward, just in supporting the workforce and in providing the information that can help people to navigate some of the obstacles I fear we will be dealing with for some time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jebel. I think I said that right. Did I do better the second time?
A little bit.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on next to Mirik Milan from Vibe Lab and the first night mayor of Amsterdam. Can you hear me, Mirik?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, everyone. And yes, of course, we as Vibe Lab, which is a purpose-driven consultancy rooted in nighttime advocacy, me being the first night mayor of Amsterdam and my partner being the spokesman of the Berlin Club Commission. We support the campaign. We also support, of course, a cultural passport. When it comes to touring, the economic impact of nightlife in Berlin is 1.8 billion on a yearly basis, and in Amsterdam it's 1.25. So it's a tremendous industry, and that really relies also on touring and artists coming over. the Netherlands has an export, like our focus is mostly on nightlife, and our focus is definitely also in the electronic music space. And the export of electronic music in the Netherlands is around about 200 million on a yearly basis. And that's why it's also been placed as a top sector for creative industries that allows it to get support from government and organizations. So for us, it's essential that touring keeps on going, not only for the people that perform on stage, but also the people that work in the backstage and in the creative productions surrounding festivals. So music festivals are such a big part of night culture and nightlife in the Netherlands. And therefore it's crucial that really people come together and that they advocate for the same cause. At this moment, there is no musician or artist union in the Netherlands, and that has been a big issue for a long time. So they can't really represent themselves also in a case when it comes to touring in the UK or abroad. So I think this is also, what the pandemic has shown us is that there is really a need for trade bodies, for unions, for advocacy groups to really come together. And that's why I think this is a great session, because it's really important that all these advocates interconnect and therefore have a bigger voice on the table in the EU and in the UK. So very much in support of everything what you guys are doing and everybody's work. So we're happy to collaborate in moving this forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mirik, sorry. And finally, Erin Lynch from the Career Restricted Event Workers. Can you hear me, Erin? Are you there?
I can. Hiya.
Hi, Erin.
Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Excellent. So yeah, my name's Erin Lynch. I am no stranger to the visa issue. As an American living in Europe for 26 years now. So it's something that I'm used to, but it's definitely something that's going to be an issue. I started CREW Coalition, which again is an acronym for Career Restricted Event Workers, back in July of 2020, when I realized that so many live event workers, primarily crew, are slipping through all of the cracks. So as if COVID wasn't enough to knock us down, now we have the Brexit crisis coming, and people are leaving the industry in flocks. It's very worrisome. So the good thing about being last on this as well is basically everybody has said everything verbatim that I wanted to say, so there's not much left to say. So I will keep it very brief because I know we're running a little bit behind. But in addition to crew being extremely affected by this, like Noel said, a lot of people are saying British passports need not apply. I'm a production manager and event manager and tour manager as well. It breaks my heart to not be able to bring my crew on tours moving forward, my British crew on tour moving forward. So I move over to European crew, and none of them are left because they've all just left the industry. So we're losing talent in drones at this point. I think everything else was actually mentioned. I really had a great speech all lined up, but I've crossed everything out. We mentioned supply chain companies, lights and sound companies based in the UK being really affected by this, but also bus companies, nightliner companies, trucking companies are also going to be really screwed, for lack of a better word, when all of this comes to terms. And if cabotage really is a thing, then forget it. It's a logistical nightmare. There's just no more touring. Not many productions can afford something like that. And this doesn't just affect the small bands and acts coming out. It's also the mid-level, even up to 3,000 cap. The more costs that are involved with doing 1 or 2 shows in the UK, the least likely we are going to be to go and do those. So yeah, I wholeheartedly support this movement and the cultural passport idea. And thanks again for having me.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Erin. Good point, well made there. And the fact that a lot of the points that have already been mentioned just really highlights the impact that this does have a cross-cultural impact across countries, across industries, across everything. And the only way out of this is for everyone to come together and collaborate. Thank you very much, everyone. Next up, take this opportunity to remind you of how you can help. So of course, sign Tim's petition and share it with your friends, follow us on Twitter and retweet all of the material. Sign the letter to Lord Frost, tweet your MP, support Carry On Touring, spread the word with the message touring isn't working, and you can also sign up to a mailing list. All of these links will be on the side there. Great. So moving on, there have been many political supporters of this campaign who can't be here today. But wait a second. Yes. Sorry, just trying to several different messages coming up. Great. Sorry about that. There have been many different political supporters here who can't be here today, so we're just going to take a look at what they have to say. Oh no, we're not. We're going to bring in Alison.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sorry, I was getting like 3 different messages there. Hi, Alison. Sorry.
Hi, and it's good to be with everybody today. I'm Alison McGovern. I'm the Labour Member of Parliament for Wirral South. I'm also the Shadow Culture and Sport Minister, and just as a matter of fact, my granddad was a folk singer. So live music, touring, events, creative events are hugely important to me personally. But more importantly, I just want to give my support for campaigns to make sure that creative people can tour and can work and also express their creativity right across Europe. I'd just give 3 reasons very quickly why that is. No doubt others have said this too, so apologies for repeating, but I just want to affirm this is important to us because of who we are. Fundamentally, in the United Kingdom and across Europe, we are creative. Our cultural arts are known around the world. They are supported and adored around the world. We are creative, and standing in the way of that, makes no sense. We are also cooperative, and I think this event today shows that whatever the rhetoric from some, actually, it's a common sense thing that we should work together with others to remove barriers to people working together. I think we are fundamentally cooperative. That's been in despite events, that's been in the British psyche for a long time, and that's why we've had such a role on the global stage in more recent years, because we are cooperative. And finally, I know everybody who works in music, in culture, in the arts, in theatre. They have to be very entrepreneurial. And we have reaped the benefits of that because people have had ideas, wanted to push them forward, have created things that are exciting, and that have set a high standard for creative arts around the world. And I'm very proud of that. But it's that entrepreneurial spirit that makes it happen. So frankly, the idea that politicians will put bureaucratic barriers in the way of that entrepreneurial spirit, I think is crackers. And I think actually that's something, I might be the shadow minister and I might be Labour, but I think that's something that would be widely supported across all political parties. So we're creative, we're cooperative, and we're entrepreneurial. And that's why we need to carry on touring and make sure that we deal with this problem so that we can really be who we are and show everybody the best side and the best talent that we have to offer. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much there, Alice McGovern, the Labour MP and Shadow DCMS Minister. Thank you, Alison. So we have a number of other political supporters who can't be here today. So we're just going to throw to some pre-records, starting with Julian Knight, MP.
Hello, I'm David Warburton, Member of Parliament for Somerton and Frome, and also Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Music. I can't be with you today, I'm afraid, but as a musician in a former life and with so many friends in the creative industries, I know how the touring industry has really been at the sharp end of things and really been hit so hard over the past year. The situation we're in, with no exemption for freedom of movement for those on tour, it's a huge hammer blow for both the UK and the EU. For those whose work is all around touring, the EU is of course their lifeblood, and they quite simply have no work. And until this is resolved, it's only going to get harder. We all know how important the industry is, not just for the country economically, but also important for individual happiness, social well-being, human interaction and togetherness. So not being able to tour the EU doesn't just affect touring artists and professionals, with their own earnings and the tax that we all get from that. It actually affects millions of people's lives. Now, obviously, we've got to get the UK and EU countries around the negotiating table and fast. So sorry again that I can't be there, but I'll certainly keep supporting the Carry On Touring campaign and doing all I can in Westminster and beyond to get things put back in order. We need this fixed for all of us.
Hello, I'm Tim Clement-Jones. I was the sponsor of the Live Music Act in the House of Lords a few years ago, and I'm a huge admirer of the UK music industry and our creative industries. I'm sorry I can't be with you today. During the pandemic, our touring creatives, whether in music, dance, theatre or fashion, have been hit incredibly hard. The failure to secure a reciprocal exemption to permit freedom of movement for creatives on tour or short-term paid engagements and their support staff when we left the EU has been catastrophic for UK and EU touring creatives. For musicians, for example, lockdown has been really tough. For many touring professionals, it's going to get even harder if they can't carry on touring. Accounts differ as to why no agreement was originally reached, but all touring by creative artists will be affected if the government and EU don't return to the negotiating table. We're talking about one of the most successful and fastest growing sectors, where now real jobs and livelihoods risk being lost. I'm a huge supporter of the Carry On Touring campaign, and many congratulations to Tim Brennan and colleagues for all their work in the campaign to raise the profile of this industry-threatening issue and to find a solution. I'm determined to do whatever I can to help achieve a successful outcome.
Hi, I'm Pete Wisher. I'm the Member of Parliament for Perth and North Perthshire, but probably more notably before I was in Parliament, I was a musician of, I would say, very modest note. I had the great experience of being able to tour Europe, and it was one of the great experiences that you get as a musician, exploring a continent, playing in some of the fantastic venues that exist right across the whole of Europe. I was profoundly disappointed when this government failed to reach an agreement with the European Union about visa access as part of its negotiations about leaving the European Union. I still hope that a solution is put together which will allow that unfettered access to these markets, to give the opportunity to young artists. One thing that we do well in this country is provide musicians. We lead the world when it comes to creative enterprise. Our music is in the top 10 of every country around the world. We've got to fix this. We've got to make sure that we sort it. Let's carry on the touring. We can work it out.
Hello, my name is Julian Knight and I'm the Chair of the Digital Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee. We're about to have a session with the Secretary of State, Oliver Dowden, where I will be raising once again the issue of the right to work for our creative industries, those involved in them in the EU. It's been 133 days now since we left the EU, and I think it's beholden on the government to get this sorted. I don't believe it's right that these industries, which are a huge contributor to our economy and to our social life and to our culture, that they should effectively endure what is a no-deal Brexit. Now, I'm going to take the matter to the Secretary of State, as I have done with the Prime Minister, and I wanted to say to you, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you today as you discuss many of the issues around this particular topic. I wanted to wish you all the best of luck, and also I wanted to say that I support the campaign to carry on touring. And then finally, I wanted to say that I'm going to do all that I can, and my committee is also going to do all that it can in order to bring those who are responsible for this to account, to say exactly why it is this has happened, but also crucially to get moving and also to arrange those bilateral agreements that the industry needs. Thank you.
I'm Rory Palmer, previously Labour member of the European Parliament for the East Midlands, and I'd just like to send this quick message of support for the Carry On Touring campaign. I'd like to pay particular tribute to Tim Brennan, who was a constituent of mine here in Leicestershire during my time as an MEP. And it was, of course, Tim's petition that was the first step in this really important campaign. And Tim launched this campaign because he and many, many others will see their livelihoods really badly impacted by the implications of the government's Brexit deal and what that means for the live music industry, but indeed other industries in the entertainment sector that need to tour across the European Union. Many of us warned and raised these concerns at different points during that Brexit process. We argued and we made the case for a deal that would protect jobs and that would protect these really, really important industries. This is a multi-billion-pound industry. It makes a huge economic contribution, but of course, it makes a huge cultural contribution as well. It's an industry we should celebrate, and it's an industry where we need to see the government now listen and take action. So I hope the government are listening to the Carry On Touring campaign, and we'll have to continue to make noise until they do listen, because this is about whole industries, but it's also about individual livelihoods as well. It's about real people and real lives and real jobs.
Hello, I'm Damien Green, the MP for Ashford. I'm also a member of the Culture Select Committee, and we've been doing our best to help musicians at this very difficult time, not just on the key issue of touring, but also on other issues like bringing festivals back and indeed the payments musicians get from streaming services. But on today's key issue on touring, I think it's absolutely essential that we get back to touring normally, that therefore we need to keep talking to the EU so that the British government and the EU can work out a practical way to allow British musicians to play again and to play across the whole of Europe in a way that provides them with work and provides huge numbers of people with enjoyment. So I support Carry On Touring.
Excellent. Thank you everyone for your messages there. It's been great. Now on to the rest of our parliamentary delegates. So the strength of Carry On Touring is naturally the fact that it is cross-sector, cross-country and cross-party. So now we'd like to hear from the parliamentarians and what they have to say about this. So let us start with Sir Bernard Jenkin MP. So Bernard, could I ask you what more you think we could be doing to try and sort this out?
Well, thank you very much for this inspiring event, and I appreciate that there's a lot of anger and hurt and indeed blame, but we've got to work together to take this forward, and I've been particularly instrumental in organising a special Zoom summit with Oliver Dowden and a whole lot of classical music performers, with a sprinkling of others, people who organise tours, orchestras and opera companies, to land the point that we will not accept this situation as the new normal. And I think we've got to keep asking ourselves, who on earth wants to stop this kind of cultural exchange in Europe? And on what basis is it justified? And I see no justification for it at all. I think it's, if I made one mistake as a supporter of Brexit, it was making the rather naive assumption that nobody could possibly want to prevent the kind of cultural exchange that that long predated the European Union and was certainly assisted by the freedoms we had in the European Union, but could so easily be extended after we've left the European Union. And I think one of the most encouraging things I've heard today is how there are people in the European Union who are also putting pressure on Ursula von der Leyen and the Commission, because they've got to understand as strongly that it's European musicians and artists and others who are losing out by their lack of access to the United Kingdom, almost to the same extent as we're losing out from our lack of access to the EU. This can be remedied, this can be fixed, and I can assure you, I'm a trustee of the Parliament Choir. I've stood next to a German-based singer, as we've sung the Mozart Requiem in Westminster Hall together, who was a representative of the Bundestag choir. I feel completely joined with my European brothers and sisters by music. And I think this is a terrible tragedy. It can't be allowed to persist. Both my sisters are professional singers. I studied as a professional singer before giving it up and doing something much more stupid like going into politics. And I am determined that we sort this out. I'm chairman of the liaison committee that put the Prime Minister on the spot recently and got it up the agenda. That's what we've got to continue doing. And I can assure you, I will not rest until this is sorted.
Excellent. So Bernard, thank you very, very much there. Moving on to John Nicholson. Can you hear me, John?
Unmuted. No, I can hear you. You can hear me. Hi. Listen, thanks very much indeed for asking me along to speak. I'm John Nicholson, Scottish National Party frontbencher. I'm spokesperson for culture, and I also sit on the select committee as well. And what strikes me listening to all of this is how much of this we knew before Brexit. Because in a previous select committee, I heard representatives from all the sectors coming up before us and predicting that Brexit would result in some of these disasters. And so the government has walked into this because it hasn't prioritised the industry. We recently had Caroline Denneage, the minister before us in the select committee, who told us in one of these theatrical phrases that politicians like, that she's straining every sinew to resolve this. And so I asked her which of the 27 countries that we now have to negotiate with separately, the British government was currently in negotiations with. And the answer was not a single country. So if that's her straining, I would hate to see her when she wasn't straining. I raised this issue today in the House of Commons in a question to the Culture Secretary and suggested that he spent less time engaging in culture wars over issues like statues, slaver statues, and trying to bully museums and galleries into what they display, and focus on this issue, because it's not the fault of the European Union. We know they wanted to resolve this. It is the fault of the UK government, and that's why we're in this position. And it's a tragedy, because one of our greatest exports, everybody said it all day today, is from the cultural sector. It's music, arts, it's fashion. We're famous for it. So the government's got to drop the zealotry. And I'm sorry, I'm being directly political about this, but the government has got to drop the zealotry, the obsession with free movement and preventing free movement. And it's got to get artists, musicians, and others in this sector moving again. And the only way that can happen, I think, is for us to apply maximum pressure all the time on the government over this issue. And you know what? I think Brexiteers like Sir Bernard there are really very embarrassed about this, because they told us before Brexit that we would hold all the cards, there'd be free movement, there'd be no problems. And what they really hate is the fact that those of us who oppose Brexit have been shown to be right over this. So I think maybe the Brexiteer MPs might be our secret weapon in all of this, out of embarrassment as well as passion for the arts.
John Nicholson MP, thank you very much.
Also, can I just say thank you to you guys? Thank you to you guys as well for organising this. You know, because it's been an amazing day. You know, I know that I know how much work you've all put into this, and it's heartrending, some of the witness statements that we've heard on the committee and some of the communications that I get from many people in this sector. Following on from COVID, this is just so awful, and I really am very upset about it for you.
Thank you, Ian. And of course, thank you to everyone at Carry On Touring. As Ian said earlier, this week, no, we're not going to shut up until it is sorted. So moving on now to the Right Honourable Hilary Benn. MP.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Tim. Tim, especially for turning the anger that there is, which we've heard expressed during the course of this afternoon and at previous events, for turning it into what I think is a great campaign. It's a timely campaign, and let's just say it, this is a campaign we intend to win. And what we've got to do is to capture the spirit of today's terrific event, to lobby furiously. We must leave no stone unturned, no conversation unhad, no argument unput, no petition not presented to make the case. And while Bernard and I disagree fundamentally on the subject of Brexit, I think he said one thing that I agree very much with. Who's going to stand up and say, well, thank you for that, but no, I don't think we want musicians and performers and actors and stage technicians and others to carry on touring, whether it's Brits going to Europe or Europeans coming to the United Kingdom. And therefore, we don't have to win that part of the argument, but what we have to do is to get the politicians to do their job, which is to negotiate an agreement. And that means putting pressure on the British government, but it also means putting pressure on governments in Europe and also on the European Commission, because the one truth we need to tell is that relations between the two at the moment are not exactly fantastic. And we have to overcome the politics and the pride and the red line positions that have got us into this mess and say, look, what has happened, but we're still just on the other side of the channel from each other. It's in our shared interest, to our mutual benefit, that this great industry that we are very proud of and you're very proud of, that the performers of today and the performers and artists and musicians of tomorrow have the chance to tour, to learn their craft, to sell their music or their films or whatever it is, because in the end, we're all going to benefit. We're all going to be enriched. So all power to your collective elbows. And as parliamentarians, we're here today because we intend to do every single thing we can to help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hilary. Ben. Yes, very well put. As Caroline Dinenage once said, she kept repeating the phrase, the door is open for negotiations. But I think as we've established today, there's so much at stake that we should be kicking the door down. Moving on now to Catherine McKinnell MP. Can you hear me, Catherine?
Yes, I can. Thank you. And it's good to be here today, although I really wish we didn't have to be. I was honoured to lead the debate on Tim's petition back in February as chair of Parliament's Petitions Committee. Before the debate, we took evidence. We heard, as John has said on the DCMS committee, we heard evidence about how working as a creative can be unpredictable, precarious, with low rates of pay, but how creatives stick with it because it's your passion, it's your calling, it's the way to fulfill your dreams. And we've heard again today from so many people how working in the EU, whether it's touring, recording, teaching, or jumping on a plane at the last minute to fill in for someone, is an absolute lifeline, an essential part of making a living. It's not a nice to have, it's essential. And we know how the last 14 months has been catastrophic for an industry often reliant on large gatherings and frequent travel. But what Tim and now the almost 300,000 people so far who've signed his petition have highlighted is how that overlap between lockdown and the pandemic that we've all been experiencing, but also the end of the Brexit transition, have masked problems created by that failure to reach an agreement with the EU for touring artists, which is now very much coming to the fore as we very much hope on moving out of this pandemic. So with events like the summit, your campaign, it's really important. More and more people are coming to understand what it means for the future of live music, for actors, for creatives, for touring, but for our world-renowned creative industries, our cultural impact and influence around the world, but also for what it means for fans, for those of us who love music, art and culture and want to continue enjoying it the way we have over the last however many years we've been in the European Union, but for me, as an adult. So we need the government to find a workable solution, but we know the government has created quite a lot of difficulty for itself, insisting that exceptions for creatives would be incompatible with ending freedom of movement. Allowing EU creatives to work in the EU on a temporary basis is just not compatible with what we had previously, where we could work and live in the EU indefinitely. And so ministers must understand that working and touring in the EU, it's not an optional extra for creatives. It's an essential part of their careers. It's an essential part of what we love about the creative industries. So I know that there's looking at bilateral agreements with EU countries, but that is very much a second best solution. But if that is what is on offer in the short term, it needs to be absolutely proactively prioritised, and we need to negotiate it urgently to get cultural exemptions. But also, I think I share many of the frustrations about the he said, she said that's gone on with the EU, or claims that the industry representatives have supported the government's stance in negotiations, because it's not helpful. We all need to pull in the same direction on this. Music and creativity thrive on cultural exchange and collaboration. And I know that campaigners, artists and parliamentarians want to work with ministers. We want to work with ministers. We all need to work together for the benefit of creative industries so that you can all carry on touring. So I just want to say a big thank you for organising today. It's really vital that we shout up that as parliamentarians, we do what we can and work together. But it's also really vital that we raise the public's awareness of this, the impact on our industries, but the impact on our ability to enjoy music and creative industries and everything that we want you to keep producing. So thank you.
And thank you, Catherine. Thank you for being here. Sadly, Lord Adonis has not been able to make it today, but we do have Lord Strasburger, who is here and a very keen supporter of this movement. Lord Strasburger, and what's your opinion on where we're at right now, and given the support for a touring passport for artists, musicians in the cultural sector, what needs to give and what needs to happen next?
Well, thank you, Andrew. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. Well, the Lib Dems are massive supporters of the creative arts sector, and they always have been. And there's a group of about 10 Lib Dem lords who've been very busy working to fix this touring disaster. We've raised this issue in the Lords about 20 times this year, and we'll be doing it again next Thursday. I organised the letter to the Times about this problem in January that was signed by 160 leading artists from classical music, rock, pop, jazz, as well as leading figures from the industry. But we mustn't forget that this doesn't just affect musicians. This is a catastrophe for the army of people who support them and depend on them for employment. And as we've heard, it's way more than music. It's dance, theatre, film, fashion, even exhibitions and conventions. So I recently went to the man at the top and confronted David, now Lord Frost, in a private meeting about this catastrophic no-deal Brexit for our world-beating creative sector. He blamed it all on the EU, predictably, but not very convincingly, I have to say. I said that it was his failure, and it was him that turned down the EU's offer during the negotiations that looked good to the industry, especially compared with where we are now. He said that it breached the government's manifesto pledge to stop freedom of movement. Well, I pointed out that it's not an immigration issue, as he's painting it. It's about short-term employment for strictly limited professions, and it's about our 111 billion pound a year industry that is being hobbled by being left out of the trade deal. And so we better get on with sorting it. And I'm afraid it was politics that's caused this mess, and the only way out of it is going to have to be political. The UK government has got to go to Brussels and negotiate a cultural exemption on visas, work permits and cabotage. And this government won't climb down easily off its sovereignty high horse until it's really pushed. So the only way to make that happen is to work together and turn up the wick on the Carry On Touring campaign and others like it, and make this a serious public embarrassment for Mr. Johnson so that he has to make another U-turn, and he's had a bit of practice at that. And to complement this campaign, I'm planning some major publicity involving A-list artists and maybe a big pan-European gig involving a mix of big stars and emerging artists who are, of course, the worst hit by this. And we must keep going with this campaign. We're on the side of the angels and we have access to a huge army of fans to help us. We can and we must succeed.
Thank you very much, Lord Strasburger, and thank you very much to all of our parliamentarians there for taking the time to contribute today. It's very important, as we've said, politics aside, this is a very, very human issue that's going to impact the livelihoods of thousands of people across countries and across all different elements of culture. So thank you very much for being involved, because cross-party collaboration is the only way out of this now. Unfortunately, DCMS themselves were unable to attend this event in that Caroline Dinenage can't be here. She is the minister who is negotiating a deal and apparently, and has the power to return to the negotiating table. So let's hear what she has to say.
Hello, I'm Caroline Dinenage, the Minister of State for Digital and Culture, and I'm delighted to be speaking at Carry On Touring's UK-EU Summit. It's wonderful to note that so many international delegates are attending this online event from right across the creative and cultural touring sectors. I want to thank all of those involved with Carry On Touring here today, including those organisations who've engaged so constructively with my department as part of the touring working group. The end of freedom of movement inevitably means changes, including for our creative and cultural sectors. Just like the UK, EU member states have the right to control their own borders and arrangements for non-EU workers. But we know how the creative and cultural sectors rely on the ability to move people and equipment across borders quickly and simply, and therefore the particular challenges these sectors face. And these are unprecedented times, further complicated by the pandemic, meaning we haven't been able to see how new arrangements actually work in practice. So, for our friends here from the EU, I want to take the opportunity to reassure you that the UK is very much looking forward to seeing European artists and performers back here in the UK, and that we have in place very generous rules to support that. And for our UK-based delegates, I want to be really clear that we are absolutely committed to supporting you. We have provided an unprecedented package of support for the creative and cultural sectors, including over £1.5 billion through the Culture Recovery Fund. And we're working tirelessly to support you in touring abroad. We know that audiences and venues across the EU want to host our great artists and performers, and we want to help make sure that you can seize these opportunities as soon as it's safe to do so. Firstly, I want to briefly set out the background of what happened during our negotiations with the EU, as I know there are a number of misconceptions right here. In negotiations, we fought for a good deal for our touring sectors. The UK's proposals would have enabled performers, artists and support staff to tour and perform in the EU without needing work permits. I really deeply regret that the EU rejected our proposals. The EU did make their own proposals, but we must be clear that these wouldn't have addressed the sector's main concerns. They weren't binding, they didn't include touring, but only ad hoc performances. They didn't include the all-important technical support staff and didn't address the issue of work permits. We have heard the calls from the sector for an EU-wide visa waiver, but as was the case during negotiations last year, the Commission would be likely to argue that any visa waiver agreement can only be part of a much wider package, and that remains incompatible with the manifesto commitment to take control of our borders. The UK does enable visa-free visits from other EU citizens, but we wish to retain control of how we apply the policy, and no major G7 economy has agreed to lock in their visa system with the EU in this way. Our door, of course, remains open should the EU wish to revisit these issues. But I think it's now really important that we look ahead with the government and the sector working together to improve the situation. As I mentioned earlier, we've established a working group with representatives from across the creative and cultural sectors, other key government departments and the devolved administrations. This has been a really vital forum to discuss the issues, to build the evidence base and to look at options for further support. I want to reiterate how much I welcome the spirit of collaboration shown by the sector within this forum. Since establishing the working group, we've worked together to address a number of concerns. These include confirming that carnets are not required when musicians accompany portable musical instruments between the EU and UK and vice versa, and confirming that touring artists and support staff from the UK will not be double charged for social security contributions. To help musicians and performers understand the new rules and requirements, we have in the last fortnight published sector-specific landing pages on gov.uk, helping navigation of guidance online. These also provide links to the government's new business traveller guides, provide work permit and visa information for EU member states. And we recognise that visas and work permits are a primary concern for the sector. The government has now held discussions with every member state to encourage them to make their rules and guidance around visas and work permits clear and accessible. Some have already taken steps to improve their guidance, and we will continue to work with our counterparts to promote the need for clarity. Through this work, we have established that in at least 17 out of 27 member states, UK musicians and performers can undertake some touring activities without needing visas or work permits. This includes France, Germany, the Netherlands, and many others. We want to make sure that this information gets to those who need it. There are several organisations in the music and creative industries who have been producing their own guidance in this area, and we're now working with them to discuss our findings and ensure that we have a cleared and shared understanding. The Secretary of State and I are also speaking to our ministerial counterparts in a number of key member states. We're talking to them about the reopening of our respective cultural and creative industries post-COVID and using the opportunity to promote the importance of touring. These have been warm and positive conversations. When talking to my counterparts in member states, I'm always keen to emphasise the UK's generous rules for European musicians and performers. And where member states are willing to align their rules more closely with ours, we will of course encourage them to do so. Finally, I'd just like to touch on cabotage. We recognise that as well as visas and permits, new rules around cabotage are a major concern for the sector. During negotiations, the UK did push for a special derogation from the cabotage restrictions for hauliers carrying equipment for concert tours and similar activities, but the EU rejected this. This is such a complex issue for which there are no simple solutions, but we are working closely to support the Department of Transport and with the creative sectors and the haulage industry themselves to look at what might be done. So I'd just like to conclude today by reiterating the government's support for touring and our commitment to our creative and our cultural industries. While our exit from the EU inevitably means that there will be changes, by working together, I'm confident that we can support touring to resume as soon as possible.
Thank you, Caroline Dinage there from the DCMS. I can see in the comments that everyone very much enjoyed that. Very possibly the best, the most high production value we've seen of any of our submissions today. I would now like to invite back Tim and Ian. Can you hear me, Tim and Ian?
I can indeed, thank you.
What did you make of that?
Before I come on to the last statement from Minister Dinage, I would just like to thank everybody who's contributed today, absolutely everybody. We're all speaking with one voice. We need solutions. We don't need to go back at what happened in the Brexit negotiations, whether this happened or that happened, it's irrelevant. We need a solution. Caroline Dinage says we're going to have changes. Changes don't necessarily mean extinction, because what we're looking at, unless we get some solutions to this problem, is that parts of the creative arts industries in the UK are potentially on the edge of extinction. Ballet dancers that have come out of our colleges, I can't think of the right word, but they will not exist anymore. They have to go to audition and to work in Europe. Musicians, the haulage industry, actors, dancers, theatre producers, technicians, of which there are many, many thousands in the UK, need a solution for this problem. We don't need deflection anymore about what has happened and what is happening and what may be happening and who's talking to who. We want solutions. We've been told day after day, month after month, that the door is opened. This is happening. This is happening. It's not. I know personally from talking to people around the EU, because I'm based here a lot of the time. And I don't just mean music export officers, I mean other people in governments and government departments are not hearing anything at all. So if we're going to start this on by getting bilaterals, at the very, very least, somebody needs to start talking to other people, and that is the UK government. Whether that's through the Department of Transport or DCMS or whoever, we need a solution. So I'll say no more other than this, which I said right at the beginning. We're all in this together, everybody on this call, everybody watching. It's essential, not just for the UK, but for EU. It's the very nature of our existence in some ways are our creative industries, both in terms of our quality of life, but also in terms of real jobs, real lives, real people being affected by this. So I'll say no more. I'll try and calm down a little bit, but no, I won't. I'm going to carry on until the end, as I'm sure all of us will hear. And my thanks as well to all the parliamentarians who came on today, to everybody across the EU and everybody who is with us in the UK. That's my small piece. Thank you.
I will swing back and check if any of our parliamentarians have any kind of feedback on Caroline's video there. But first, Tim, what did you make of that?
Well, to be honest, I think she's out of sync with everything that people have been saying today. We've had some fabulous information, speeches from all the participants. And well, to be honest, I didn't really expect any different. So we are going to stop. We are going to keep this fight going. We've had, as I look at it, we've had 81 people sign a letter so far to Lord Frost. So that's going to be going out on next week. So we need that to be shared. We'll be sharing that a lot more. There'll be a lot more going on the website. You'll probably see quite a bit of these videos from all of this. One of the things we really need to help us fight our battle is more support from the bigger names in the industry. You know, the big names that do all the big tours, the Elton Johns and all of those guys. We need to make this noise loud as possible. We need to keep the pressure on these guys to make sure it gets sorted out. Thanks.
Thank you. Do any of our parliamentarians have a response to Caroline Dinnige's video there? Yes, John. John Nicholson, MP.
Yeah, just very briefly in one comment, I would say Caroline Dinige refers repeatedly to the EU's position and to her position. I've asked her if she'll publish those two positions. I don't mean to be distrustful, but I'd very much like to see the paperwork that proves the position she alleges the EU took at the time. And it's notable that she refuses to publish any of the paperwork. I just put that on the table for general observation.
Thanks, John. We did put an FOI request in at one point. I need to chase that up. I'm not sure what happened. I think we were told it was of no interest to us. Following up, can I now ask Bernard Jenkin, do you have anything to say in response to Caroline Dinige's comments?
Yes, and I think I was just about to put in the chat, but I might as well say this so that everybody hears it. I think I'm going to advise the government just to stop trying to explain what's happened in the past, because that's not what really I think Ian's point is absolutely right, that we need to start looking forward. Can I just say, I completely understand why people are so angry and they're going to carry on attacking what the government's done, but I don't think it's doing the government or anybody any good trying to respond to that. I think it'd be much better if we concentrated on producing, all together working on the practical solutions that we can put to the EU, which the EU will find difficult to resist. And if the EU, and John, I perfectly understand it's what oppositions do, is try and get government publish things. But at no point during the EU negotiations was the government ever going to publish its negotiating position. If we want the government to negotiate effectively over this, we must give them the safe space in which to conduct those private conversations, because they're far more likely to get a positive result. So I think that let's all try and work together for the future. And that's certainly what I am attempting to do. And I will join with my other parliamentarians, some of who've had great experience in government. I thought Hillary's tone was extremely bipartisan and very conciliatory, and considering what a passionate supporter of the European Union he is, I really respect that. And so I want to work. I'm going to react to the fishing point. The fishing, the really important, I shouldn't react to this really, but the really important thing about fishing is saving the ecology of our oceans from the absolute disaster of the common fisheries policy. And then there will be still fish to catch. I think that's much more important than the 26 million that we've given to the fishing industry. But maybe Hillary would agree with that point, that we're in grave danger of fishing our oceans right out. It's a different issue, but I regarded it as a conservation argument primarily, the fishing stuff. I just saw something in the chat. I probably shouldn't have mentioned fish. Thank you.
Yeah, fish is very triggering for a lot of people in the chat. If I could just throw it to Lord Strasburger. Lord Strasburger, do you have any comments on Caroline Dinnage's response?
Well, I think it just showed what we knew already. The DCMS as a department is way down the pecking order in the government, and that's part of why this problem has arisen. This problem wasn't given enough importance and enough prominence in the negotiations. I'm sure the government now realizes what it's done, but it's struggling to find a way out of it. And the fact that she just sent us a recorded message and didn't even bother to come and listen to what the industry's got to say, I think it's just, I'm going to say it, I'm as angry as Ian is, but he controlled himself and I'm not. I'm furious with the way the government is just sticking its fingers in its ears and flanneling away and telling us about round tables for this and that. It's all kicking the can down the road. None of it is solving the problem. We have to go to Brussels and talk about it and find a sensible way through it. And the minister just saying my door is open is nowhere near good enough. So let's get on with this. Let's get this fixed.
And the Right Honourable Hilary Benn, MP, anything to say about Caroline Dinnage's comments there?
Well, look, it's a fair point that people aren't going to publish what they asked for in a negotiation. But let's move away from that and say, could you please, British government and the European Commission, set out what your policy considerations are here? Because in the end, if we're going to win the campaign, which we are, we're going to have to get them both to shift, because part of what we're going to have to do is to take all of the emotion and the organization and turn it into a specific policy proposal. And in order to do that, as in any negotiation, you have to understand where each side comes from. Now, I think Lord Strasburg has just made a really important point about DCMS, because Caroline Dinage referred twice to control of our own borders. That is the Home Office. DCMS doesn't control Home Office policy. The Home Office controls Home Office policy. So one of the things that it seems to me the campaign needs to do is to go to talk to the Home Office. I saw a comment in the chat where somebody said, does the Home Office really think that Tories are going to suddenly run away from their gig and try and live permanently in the United Kingdom when they've got a disappointed audience to perform in front of? I don't think so. I also would like to suggest that a delegation goes to see the Commission, because we could ask the Commission the question, so what was it you were prepared to put forward? And what are your red lines now? Because we need to understand the two positions to try and find a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just, before I just throw back to Ian for 1 second, I'd just like to raise something. So we ran a piece earlier this week where we spoke to Tim and David Martin from the FAC, who spoke earlier. It was very powerful words said. One was that words won't save careers, and that time is very much of the essence. And I think that there's a kind of fear that we could be having this panel again in 6 months' time. What I would say is that bands are trying to book tours now. Crew need to know where they're going to be next year when the road opens up again, and they can't. I mean, there's a blessing that COVID has kind of put things on ice in one sense, but in the other sense, touring will resume next year and people don't know what they're supposed to do. Could I just ask some of the parliamentarians when they see like just a rough time frame for when real concrete answers will be visible?
Well, if I can attempt to answer, we'd love to be able to say that. I don't think anybody can for this reason. You have to get the UK government and the Commission to be willing to reach an agreement, and that is about the politics, and that's about pressure not just in the United Kingdom, but also from our friends and colleagues in the various countries of Europe. And you need a proposition. So the sooner there is a proposition which understands where each side is coming from, which tries to address it, then we can move beyond who said what to whom during the negotiations, which is history now. It's here's a proposal, what's your problem with this? And in order to do that, we've got to understand what the concerns of the two parties are today. And that's why we need to intensify the efforts that we're making to talk to people. And so I'd put top on the list for early meetings for the campaign, 1, the Home Office, and 2, the Commission.
I would like to support everything that Hilary's just said there. He's right on. I think there is a logjam. There is an amount of people who are standing on each side of the channel saying, after you, Claude, now, after you, Cecil, or whatever it was. There is a logjam and we have to find a way to break it. I'm working on something at the moment. I really would rather not say what it is at the moment, but I'm working on a way to kick that door down and get the conversation going. And I hope I'll know a bit more about that in a few weeks' time. But it's impossible for any of us to predict when this is going to be over, but it needs to be as soon as possible.
Excellent, thank you very much. Ian, I believe you have something to add, and Olivia has asked me to remind you that time is of the essence.
Oh, right, okay, this is one sentence more or less. Thanks to Lord Strasburger for noting me holding my anger in. I can assure you it's boiling hot. It's white hot, and I reflect the anger across the whole of the industries. I hear it every day nearly, and we are boiling hot anger, but let's use that anger for positive change. Forget blame. Let's find solutions. And this anger is not going away until we get a solution. So let's carry on touring. Let's find a solution. Let's move forward. And thank you to everyone that's contributed today from me personally. Thank you.
I would also like to thank everyone who took part in today's summit and everyone who's joined in to view it. I would like to remind you all that this will be available to download and view online later on. I understand Eventbrite has been acting up for some people, but you can jump back in and revisit today's excellent comments. I'd just like to end by saying that, as we said, the one thing that keeps recurring here throughout today is that this is a very human problem. This isn't necessarily about politics or numbers, although, you know, that is what it boils down to essentially. What I would like to say is that art should not have a glass ceiling. Culture should not have any borders. A way of life for thousands, and our greatest export is at risk. These should not be sacrificed in the name of politics, but now politics and people power are our only way out. So I'd like to ask everyone on this call and everyone viewing this later to do what you do best and make some noise. It's what we're here for. So just to say what you can do, of course, you can go and sign the original petition and share it with your friends, share it far and wide. 280,000 is probably not enough. Follow the Carry On Touring campaign on Twitter and retweet all of the material. Of course, sign this letter to Lord Frost, that is absolutely essential. Tweet to your MP and ask if they are supporting the Carry On Touring campaign, because if they aren't, they should, because everyone's constituents needs culture. How would we have got through a lockdown without culture? I have no idea. Spread the word. Touring as we know it is no longer possible. And of course, continue to carry on carry on supporting Carry On Touring. Sign up to our mailing lists, keep in touch, because as we've said, this isn't going away. We will continue to talk about this until it's sorted, which by the sounds of it will be for months to come. So please keep abreast of all the news and keep active and keep making some noise. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers.
Yes.